Alex G. and Matt Armstrong built something Bugatti's engineers said couldn't be done outside a factory. Two self-taught mechanics, working out of a UK garage with second-hand tools, took a wrecked hypercar that insurance had written off as total loss and brought it back to life. The bill to do it properly? Over £3 million. They did it for a fraction of that. But what Bugatti did next, quietly behind closed doors nobody saw coming, there are cars that get written off. And then there are cars that get erased. When a Bugatti Chiron sustains serious structural damage, the manufacturer's position is straightforward. The car is gone. Not reparable. Not salvageable. Gone. Insurance assessors who examined this particular Chiron agreed. The wreck was valued at approximately £180,000, a number that sounds significant until you remember the car had originally left the Molsheim factory priced at over £2.4 million. What remained was crumpled bodywork, severe front-end collapse, and structural compromise that most professionals in the industry simply wouldn't touch. Matt Armstrong saw it differently. Armstrong had built a following on YouTube by documenting salvage rebuilds that other people had abandoned. High-end machinery, complex problems, transparent process. His channel wasn't about shortcuts. It was about showing every stage of a difficult job in real time, including the parts where things went wrong. When the Chiron came up through a specialist salvage auction in late 2022, he moved quickly. The acquisition raised eyebrows immediately. Industry contacts warned him directly. Bugatti had been clear in its own published guidance. Any crash-damaged Chiron requiring structural assessment must be returned to the factory in Molsheim, France. That process alone, before a single repair begins, costs upward of £500,000. For a private individual, the economics made no sense. For Armstrong, the challenge was precisely the point. He brought in Alex G. Where Armstrong's strength was documentation and project visibility, Alex G. brought a fabrication background that approached the problem from an entirely different angle. Together, they represented something Bugatti's framework hadn't accounted for: two people with the skills, the determination, and a very public platform to attempt what the manufacturer had effectively designed to be impossible. Both of them understood what they were walking into. What they didn't know yet was exactly how far Bugatti would go to stop them. If you had access to a wrecked Bugatti Chiron and £200,000, would you have attempted this or walked away? Drop your answer below. To understand why this project was considered impossible, it helps to understand what a Chiron actually is beneath the bodywork. Most high-performance cars are built around a steel or aluminum frame. The Chiron is different. Its structural core is a carbon fiber monocoque, a single-piece shell that forms both the chassis and the safety cell at the same time. According to Bugatti's own published engineering documentation, that monocoque is hand-laid at the Molsheim factory by a dedicated team of 12 specialists. The process takes approximately 50 hours per unit. The material is aerospace grade. The layup sequence is proprietary, and the finished structure is rated to withstand forces exceeding 50,000 newtons during side impact scenarios. When that structure is compromised, Bugatti's official position is simple: no external repair can restore certified structural integrity. Full stop. The damage on Armstrong's Chiron wasn't surface level. 3 of the monocoque's primary load-bearing sections had fractured. This wasn't a panel swap or a cosmetic fix. It was a structural engineering problem, one that required intimate knowledge of how the original material had been oriented, bonded, and cured during the manufacturing process. Knowledge that Bugatti guards carefully. Sourcing replacement components made everything harder. Bugatti does not sell structural parts to private buyers under any circumstances. The policy exists for liability reasons, but the practical effect is total. There is no legitimate supply chain for a Chiron monocoque section outside the factory walls. Armstrong and Alex G. had to find a different route entirely. They turned to aerospace-grade carbon fiber specialists operating in the UK, companies more accustomed to repairing aircraft components than road cars. By cross-referencing Bugatti's published engineering data with layup specifications obtained through contacts in the composite materials industry, The team began mapping a repair approach that had never been attempted privately before. The material cost for the monocoque work alone exceeded £60,000. That figure didn't include labor, tooling, or the failed attempts that came before each successful result. Every solution created a new problem. Every answer opened 3 more questions. And, quietly, while every stage of this was being filmed and uploaded for millions of people to watch, someone with a very direct interest in the outcome had started paying close attention. The rebuild had been public from the beginning. Every stage documented, every setback filmed, millions of people watching in real time as 2 mechanics attempted something the industry had classified as impossible. That visibility was the point, but it also made the project impossible to ignore for the people who had the most to lose from it succeeding. Around the midpoint of the rebuild, Bugatti AG made direct contact. The nature of that contact depends on who is describing it. Armstrong characterized it publicly as an expression of concern around brand representation and safety certification. A manufacturer worried about how its flagship hypercar was being handled outside controlled conditions. That framing sounds reasonable on the surface, but automotive legal analysts who reviewed the situation noted something different. The language used, according to those familiar with the correspondence, carried implicit legal weight. This wasn't a courtesy call. It was a communication designed to be understood clearly. The legal ground Bugatti stood on was real, under both EU and UK type approval regulations. A vehicle that has undergone structural repair outside a manufacturer-authorized facility cannot simply be re-registered and returned to the road. It must pass an individual vehicle approval test, a rigorous process designed for vehicles that fall outside standard homologation. For Chiron, with its 1,479 horsepower W16 engine and highly specialized engineering, passing IVA would be an extraordinary challenge under any circumstances. Bugatti's legal team understood that perfectly. According to a statement Armstrong made during a 2023 live stream, Bugatti's representatives were direct. The car could never be road legal again if the rebuild was completed outside their authorized facility. It was a significant claim, and it was delivered at the worst possible moment. By that point, the team had already committed over £200,000 to the project. Parts, specialist labor, aerospace material costs, and consultation fees that had accumulated across months of work. Walking away wasn't a financial option, and given the size of the audience watching, it wasn't a public one either. This is the part of the story most channels never dig into. If you want the full picture on how this ended, subscribe. The next part is where it gets genuinely surprising. The pressure was real. The legal framework Bugatti pointed to was legitimate. But something was about to shift, something that would quietly rebalance the power dynamic between a 2-man garage in the UK and one of the most exclusive automakers on the planet. Bugatti had drawn a clear line. The car would never be road legal outside their facility. That was the position. What Armstrong and Alex G. did next was not argue with it. They simply kept working. What emerged over the following months was not a restoration in any traditional sense. It was a documented, methodical structural reconstruction, filmed at every stage, logged with precision, and supported by independent technical review at each critical point. The approach was closer to an engineering project than a garage build, and the results reflected that. When the monocoque repair was complete, independent composite materials specialists examined both the footage and the finished work directly. Their assessment was significant. The layup technique used in the repair matched aerospace bonding standards, not the considerably less stringent norms applied in automotive manufacturing. The team had essentially borrowed aircraft repair methodology and applied it to a road car chassis. That decision, made out of necessity rather than strategy, turned out to be the single most important call of the entire project. The car was submitted for independent structural testing. According to the testing facility's report, cited directly in Armstrong's video upload from early 2024, The repaired Chiron met or exceeded the load thresholds required under UK individual vehicle approval guidelines for vehicles in its weight and performance classification. To put that in context, the Chiron produces 1,479 horsepower from a quad-turbocharged W16 engine. Getting any vehicle with those performance figures through independent approval is rare under normal circumstances. Getting one that had been structurally rebuilt in a private UK garage is, by any reasonable measure, essentially unprecedented. The documentation package the team compiled to support the IVA submission ran to over 400 pages. Engineering reports, material certificates, independent test results, photographic records covering every stage of the structural repair from the initial damage assessment through to final cure. It was the kind of submission that communicated not just technical competence, but an understanding of exactly what standard the work needed to meet, and why. Bugatti had stated clearly that private certification was not possible. The IVA process produced a different answer, and when Armstrong uploaded the results to his channel, the response from Bugatti was something nobody in the automotive world had seen coming. Most people have been told at some point that something they built or fixed wasn't good enough by someone with more authority. This story hits differently when you've been there. Because Bugatti didn't escalate. They asked questions. According to statements Armstrong made publicly in mid-2024, representatives from Bugatti contacted the team again. Not with further legal pressure, not with warnings, but with genuine technical interest. Specifically, they wanted to understand the composite repair methodology used on the monocoque, the layup approach, the bonding sequence, the curing process, the details that separated this rebuild from every other private attempt that had failed before it. That detail is easy to miss in the broader headline of the car passing certification, but it carries real weight. Bugatti operates its own restoration program, La Maison per Sang, which handles certified rebuilds of damaged and historic Bugatti vehicles. Depending on the extent of damage, the program costs between £500,000 and over £1 million per car. It is staffed by factory-trained specialists using original tooling, proprietary materials, and decades of institutional knowledge. It represents Bugatti's answer to the question of what happens when one of their cars gets seriously damaged. And yet a repair completed in a UK garage by two people working from publicly available engineering data and aerospace industry contacts had produced results that Bugatti's own restoration division apparently found worth examining. That is not a small thing. No manufacturer contacts a private individual to ask how they fix something unless the answer is genuinely useful. No formal acknowledgement has been issued. No partnership announced. As of early 2025, Bugatti's official position remains unchanged. Structural repairs on Chirons should be conducted through authorized channels. But the car exists. It is road registered. It is insured. It has been driven. And the roughly 12 million people who watched the rebuild series across Armstrong's and Alex G's combined platforms now have direct evidence of something the industry spent years insisting was impossible. The rebuild is done. The car is road legal. But the question of who really owns the right to repair a vehicle and what manufacturers are allowed to prevent is far from settled. That's a story worth understanding in full, and it connects to something much bigger than one Bugatti.